My name's Scotty Balazzi. I'm the Regional Channel Director with Nitel. I've been with Nitel since January 28th, but actually it's my second stint. I can kind of get into that in a few minutes. But before I begin, how many people here are familiar with Nitel? Raise your hands. Okay, very good. How many people have done business with Nitel? Okay, very good. Hopefully after today, maybe we can start a little bit more. But what I want to begin with is, let me ask this question. For those of you who have done business with Nitel, maybe done it for a long time, what was Nitel's, why would you go to Nitel? What were they known for? Anybody? All right. Back in the day, we were known as the company to go to for rural areas, right? We were known as an aggregator. We started back in 2003. But companies would come to us and we'd quote them when they were in Wounded Knee, Wyoming, or areas that weren't in the Tier 1 or what I consider football cities. Now we're everywhere, and we've changed our plan. And to begin with, okay, here we go. Great. I hit the wrong, there we go. There we go. To start off, is what we're trying to do here at Nitel is try to make everything simple. When you're out there quoting your customers, you've got multiple sources. TCG is really good for that. They'll go and source all your carriers. But what we can do is when we're quoting out data, and that's what we were known for to begin with, we can quote data out with an aggregator. We can do it with the last mile, multiple carriers. So we're kind of a one-stop shop, and we try to keep it simple. Where do we begin? We're founded in 2003. Rick and Ron started our company as an aggregator to begin with. And we've had over 100% organic growth. Now this is my second stint with the company. I was with the company back in 2009 through 2012. And back then we were good for data products, we were good for private lines, but that's pretty much all we had. And as we've grown, I like to look at it from a sales approach. As we've grown, one of the things is we're channel only, so you're never going to be competing with the direct sales line there. And we can go across the nation and work with every vertical market there is. But what's more important is, when I was working with them back in the day, we had just a couple products, but we're way more robust than we were before. So now, in addition to data, in addition to private lines and MPLS, now we have SD-WAN, and I'll get to that. We have 3 different platforms, which is very good. It gives you options for your customer. We also are in the managed security, so we can go into firewalls. And last but not least, and I'll get to that at the end, before we were not known as an international company. We are now global. We have combined and started working in partnership with Xperio. And I'll get to that at the end. It's brand new, so I'm pretty excited about it. What's our sweet spots? Well, first, any multi-location opportunity, especially if you're working, let's say you've got your customer, they got a couple locations in Florida, but it might be over at Fort Myers where it's Frontier, it might be up in Tampa where it's Bright House or exactly Spectrum, it might be out in California where it's CenturyLink. Well, you're gonna have to go multiple carriers, right? And you have to have multiple bills. If you come to Nitel, we can work with all 3 of those. It's still underneath the Nitel hat to get one bill. And right now what we're trying to do is make it simplified, or make it more simple. Any SD-WAN. Before I came over to Nitel for the second time, I was working in the SD-WAN territory. And 3 years ago, people were kicking the tires, right? It's a shiny new object. Last year, I think people were starting to get into it, especially if you're working with some of these young, I call them boy geniuses, but the younger the CIO, director of IT, the person that's in charge of their network, the better off that you're going to be about getting into the SD-WAN territory. The old school still tries to stay with MPLS, but they still, they might be going and kicking and screaming, but it's finally starting to come around. Any security opportunity. We could do managed security by putting firewalls at the endpoint. We could do a cloud base, and we also partnered with TrustWave to be in a global threat intelligence, we have global threat intelligence powered by TrustWave. So guys, I tried to put together this presentation on a sales perspective. That's kind of where I come from. Just a little background on myself is I schlepped long distance back in the day. I got into the local phone service. I helped start a telecom company. You know, I've been in sales management, and what have you. But I got into the channel, and where I come from is how do we go and sell this product? If it gets really technical, I'm technical to a point, but my propeller head does not spin that quickly. So, Nitin, if you got a couple questions for me, so I might have to put it off to my sales engineer. I like to say that I'm a smart guy, but I'm also smart enough to know that I'm not going to be the smartest guy in the room, but I can find my resources, and that's when I bring in my sales engineers when we work that way for a lot of pre-sales opportunities. And the last thing, of course, is mega carrier fatigue. You know, when you're trying to work with that carrier and you got a lot of problems because that carrier is trying to get too big too fast and they might be going bankrupt, there are a handful of other things that you just can't get the support from some of the other carriers. A lot of these things that we've been working with in the marketplace. That's not something that you're going to be working with us. You know, when I started with the company, we were, back in 2009, the first time around, we were a $20, $30 million company. We're right now a $120 million company, and we're completely organically grown. And we want to go to, Rick and Ron want to bring us to a $200 million company. Some of the things that I have seen now that we didn't see before was the internal support systems that we have. So, you know, when you order a product, let's just say a data circuit, you know, first level of support actually is TCG, right? They're going to make sure that things are going through with us, and we're making sure they're going to make sure we're doing it right. But once you get with us, we have a service delivery coordinator. We have a dedicated sales engineer, and his name's Ron Estacio, that I work with our companies, especially in the SD-WAN arena, so that their customers are talking with us and they really know what's going on. You know, I find it, if you're working in an SD-WAN or a multiple location, wide area network type of opportunity, it's always good to get with the engineer. And if you can go with get the engineer and that director of IT, CIO, whomever it is, and they can talk turkey, and we sit back and we just listen, you're really going to increase the odds of closing that business by about 80%. Next, our Nitel Connect overview. So let's get into SD-WAN. If you're not doing SD, how many people here have sold SD-WAN by chance? Okay. Once you get an MPLS, obviously, SD-WAN's taken over from MPLS. You know, MPLS, obviously, we know that it's taken over from frame relay. You never hear frame relay anymore. It's the shiny new object, like I was saying. And it really has, compared to what MPLS is good, but you got to work with the carrier. You got to work on their time constraints. You know, they control what's going on. But when you go with SD-WAN, now you got the control. You've got options. It's dynamic as opposed to static, which is really nice. And most companies now are making the transition to the cloud. I've read just recently that we've got, 75% of most companies that are out there are either going to the cloud or have already made that change. And two things that I've noticed. I say a lot about people kicking the tires when it comes to SD-WAN. Why is that? They like their MPLS. It's there. It's standard. Nothing's going to happen. Well, we got an ability to do what we call a hybrid SD-WAN. For those companies that are coming off MPLS to SD-WAN, we have the ability to do a hybrid so that they're not so afraid to make that jump. It's like back in the day, guys. Remember when we used to try to sell against AT&T, and even though we were 40% cheaper, we couldn't get them off AT&T. Why was that? Because they never would get fired for sticking with AT&T. And that's kind of the same thing that's going on in the SD-WAN marketplace. And we try to make it a lot easier, kind of keep it simplified. And how do we do a hybrid? Well, here's our network now. Again, before we were an aggregator, now we actually have our internal network. We got 7 points of presence across the United States. Between them, 10 gig connections. We got dual core POPs. We do have a carrier-grade MPLS backbone for these opportunities, these multi-location opportunities. Over 290 NNIs. Our service level is 100% availability. A lot of times because we have multiple opportunities going into the same customer site. And talk about voice optimization. When we get into SD-WAN, I can talk about Nextiva. My old company worked with Nextiva, and that partnership worked really well. Now we're partnershiping with Nextiva. Why? Because we don't offer UCaaS. We offer everything but UCaaS, and instead of trying to be the perfect UCaaS provider, there's way too much into it. We got together with Nextiva, and I've been on a couple of their, I'll toot your horn for a minute, but I've been on a couple of their engineering calls. You really want to get your customer to understand what's going to go on, get on an engineering call with their folks, and it makes it very simple. But what's really important is with SD-WAN, you have the ability to not only go with your fiber circuits, but let's say you've got some satellite offices out there. Let's say you've got a couple 3- and 4-person offices, and you still want to network those into your company. Well, you're not going to do it and put a 10 meg or a 20 meg fiber in there. You're probably going to do it with broadband. Well, on the old MPLS, you can't do that. What's nice with SD-WAN is you can't. So, and what's really nice about it, and I'll get to it, is you could have different carriers. If you want to bring your own bandwidth, you have different carriers in different parts of the U.S. Let's say if you got a 10, 20, 30 location opportunity, and have fiber in one area, broadband in the other area, and bring them all together. What's also nice is you could have fiber and broadband at the same location for a high availability, or make sure that you're not going down. I'll get to that in a second. We have 3 different options, guys. We've got Barracuda, we've got Versa, and we just brought along and we partnershiped with Cisco. I like Barracuda. Most of the opportunities that we're working with, that I'm working with our partners, are Barracuda. Why? Barracuda is very cost effective. You've got customers, let's say they've got 5 locations and they had an MPLS, let's just say with Windstream, right? Everybody's trying to take people away from Windstream at this time. Not that I'm knocking everybody, try to stay positive, but they have locations that they were working with T1s of old. They had an MPLS. Now you can go and say, okay, we'll put a 10 meg fiber at their headquarters, but we're going to go broadband the rest of it. With that, you can go ahead and you can go fiber, you can go broadband. You could have 2 different broadbands. You could have high availability, and also you could also have a backup of 4G LTE. Why is that important? We're all doing business down here in South Florida, although I know you got customers all over the place. But hurricane season, starting in a week, 2 weeks, something like that. You could have AT&T and you could have Comcast, and they might go down because most of South Florida is aerial, right? Unless you're downtown Fort Lauderdale or Miami, it's underground. Well, that stuff might go down. But if you've got some 4G LTE backup on those customer sites, it's going to stay up. Or if it doesn't stay up, it'll be corrected a lot faster than the wires overhead. I like Barracuda for a lot of those reasons. What's good about Barracuda also is firewall. So if you're coming up and you need a firewall for your customer, now one, if they just went out and bought a bunch of firewalls, some Palo Alto or what have you, they're probably not going to do anything and leave that. But what's nice about Barracuda is we can have firewall with it, or we can turn it off. Gives you the option. We have Versa. We have a challenge with Versa, or we had, and that's why we started working with some other carriers, where installation processes were taking too long, 9, 10 months. And so I know with a lot of, you can't go to a customer and say, hey, look, it's going to take 9 to 10 months after install, and that's after you start getting going. So that's why I like to use Barracuda more often. But now with Cisco, 3 reasons I like the fact that you can go with Cisco. For your high enterprise customers that need a lot more robust feature functionality, or they could just be Cisco users. I think a Cisco is like AT&T, is nobody's ever going to get fired if they use Cisco. Or they might be using Cisco now, and they can traverse or come over to us and still you'd be able to use Cisco. It's a known entity. Where's the rest of it? Feature functionality. With Barracuda, you've got routing, traffic engineering, secure perimeter. You could actually, and that's firewall, either at the site or cloud-based. Gateway enabled, you get application SLAs, you get QoS I was talking about before. And what's nice is you also have a remote user, VPN. In case they have those 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe 10 sites with people working from their home, you could be able to use VPN there. Versa has the same thing. One thing you'll notice differently is they have analytics from their portal. Now, this is kind of an old slide, unfortunately. The more we work with Barracuda, the more opportunities we are having to provide analytics with that as well. And last but not least, we have Cisco, which has all of those, but you got a little bit more robust feature functionality, segmentation. That's where you're separating your data through an IPsec tunnel. You could separate that traffic. You could segment your topologies, and you had cloud pathing as well. And like I said, if you're working with retail, perhaps pizza places, stuff that don't have a lot of resources at each location, that don't need a lot, the big robust stuff, Barracuda is a great opportunity for you. When you're working with healthcare facilities, those type of things that need a lot more security built into those products, I like Cisco.
How much bandwidth will all these take?
We can go from, and it's going to come up anywhere from 5 to 10 megs up to 10 gig.
It will take, so a lot of the SD-WAN and gig is like all they'll do as far as...
No, we can get up to 10 gig.
10 gig into an SD-WAN device.
You got that right. And another thing I want to bring up about Barracuda is there's no licensing in Barracuda. That's why it's more cost offensive. As you know, with SD-WAN, as you grow with your bandwidth, you might be, I'll use Windstream, I'll use what's Windstream using? Come on guys, VeloCloud. I got trained on that a long time ago, but your licensing went from a 0 to 100, and that was an aggregate bandwidth. So you could be 75 meg, or let's say 80 meg fiber. Once you go over 100 meg, if you use broadband, let's say 100 meg broadband, you're next to the next phase. So 100 to 400, now you got different licensings in a different router. And then once you're at 400, it even goes up higher. Barracuda is really good about keeping that price down. Cisco, I'm not too familiar with the price points. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, obviously, but you're bringing a lot more robust application into your environment.
So you're saying that Barracuda is a flat rate, no matter how much...
Barracuda, up to 100 meg is about $100.
Okay.
$100. Once you go over, I did a quote just recently, and we were up to 500. We were up to a gig, and it was like $329 in addition. It always will be, but from 10 meg to about 250, we're looking at $150. So it's very cost efficient. I do not know the pricing of Cisco, and this really just came out for us. That's why you probably see me talk a lot more about Barracuda than the rest.
And you provide all the products that will go into that. You'll do cable, you'll do fiber, you'll do 4G, all through Nitel.
Thank you, yes we can. Or we don't have to. If they want to bring their own bandwidth, but yet they want to put it all together. So in other words, if the customer says, Scott, we got an MPLS, we want to go off of that, or we have multiple sites, let's say they got point to point, something old school. And we have Frontier that's in Fort Myers. We have Spectrum that's up in Tampa. In Chicago, we've got AT&T. Well, you can't do an MPLS with multiple carriers. You can with us. If they just to get in the door. When I was direct, just getting in the door, bringing up SD-WAN, instead of saying, hey, can we save you some money on your circuits? It was a good way to do it, and so we can do all of that too, and then bring them all together. Next thing you know, you've got a very good wide area network.
Sites with different carriers are still
Yeah.
under contract and everything else you can do standalone.
Yep, yeah, and the options, the opportunity to be flexible, I think really gets you in the door, or at least be able to start talking about it. We good?
No, perfect. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
I get scared when I think you're going to ask me a question, then I swear to God.
On-premise appliance.
What's that?
On-premise appliance.
Yes, yeah, yep, absolutely. And the other thing too about our SD-WAN guys, it goes out pre-configured. So after the deal is sold, our sales engineer gets together, would be Ron, with their customer, whatever they might be. They're going to pre-engineer that SD-WAN, that device, and send it out. All right? Now, flexible security options. So with Barracuda, we have an integrated next-gen firewall with IPS IDS. You got URL filtering, and you also can have malware protection and antivirus. And you don't have to have it. What I like about that is if you got a customer that just spent all their money on the firewalls, you can turn that off. So that flexibility is good for those type of customers. With Cisco, we have the same, but again, as I showed you before, it's just more robust and probably utilized with some heavier hitters, so to speak. All right. Like I was telling you before, what does Cisco bring that Barracuda doesn't or Versa doesn't? The first piece is really the biggest one, is it's going to separate your data into single IPsec tunnels, like it is right here. The other thing that I like is it's really better for high security and compliance requirements. You get to separate your users from your guest users. So in other words, your employees from the people that might be out there in the lobby. I like to think of healthcare facilities that are constantly on the Wi-Fi. Most companies do that, but when you really need to guard that traffic, it's right there. And you get to isolate third-party or business partner traffic. Now we have 4 different ways to do it. Point to point, why that would happen, I don't know. Partial mesh, hub and spoke, which customers are still out there, but I think the best is a fully meshed network that works out right there. Firewalls. Your next-gen firewalls can be either prem-based, or it could also be cloud-based. What I've found with most customers that I've been working with is cloud-based is the way to go. Why? Because when you have your director of IT and they need to make changes, let's say you've got a 50, let's say you've got a 100 location opportunity. That would be a lot of work with each individual premise-based firewall. You can go and you can send that information to the cloud. It'll put that traffic out to each location, and you're ready to go. It makes it easy for the guys that are behind the scenes, that are overworked and underpaid, and they can go on and do what they need to do for their core business. Getting to the cloud. There's 2 ways you can get to the cloud. One is a Cisco Cloud. It's a Cisco Cloud on-ramp. What's nice is you have the best path connectivity for SaaS applications through multiple ISPs or our Nitel POP. And the best path can be direct internet, POP to peer, and POP to internet. What do we support? Pretty much everything that's out there. Or we can go Cloud Connect. You know, this is really simple for the small end users. You know, I like to put retail, pizza places, 10, 15 locations that don't have a lot of resources, don't really need it, but just all need to be connected. We can go straight to the cloud. And what's nice about that, that's what I was talking about, 50 to 10 gig right there. And there's always one-offs. If we need to build something that's a little bit different, we can. What's nice about this is you're going to have a lower latency because you're going straight to the cloud as opposed to going through the other way. You can increase your bandwidth as needed all the time, and it goes across multi-cloud or hybrid environments. And if we need to get more technical on that, I'd be happy to do so with you offline when I bring my engineer in. All right, so what are we looking for? We're looking for high bandwidth for voice and video that perhaps that they had before, but now, you know, a lot of people are transitioning. They don't need a 10 meg fiber. They can get a 100 meg Comcast or a 100 meg Spectrum or whatever that might be. And what I like is multiple locations on a private WAN. You know, they might have some people that they can't get fiber. Now you can go to Comcast or Spectrum, whoever that carrier might be. I use them because that's the majority of what people are using right now. They're relying on multiple connection types and vendors. Again, when they got a hodgepodge. They don't have one vendor across the United States, if that's what you're looking at on a national basis. They can put all these together and then connect them up, and now they got one network, easy to read. They could easily secure it all with a next generation firewall and go from there. They need to have 100% uptime for businesses, for business continuity and customer experience. So you could do it 3 different ways. You could have a fiber and you could have a broadband connection. You could have a fiber broadband connection, and you could have 4G LTE as well. If you need high availability, so in other words, they don't want to have one single one path in case that goes bad. I know what I'm trying to say, but I can't figure it out. So they can go with 2. So you have high availability on both of those. There's so many different ways that you can do that in the SD-WAN marketplace. Oh, what did I just do?
Way ahead or way back?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I only got a couple more, guys. You know, Carl was talking about attention span. I can only listen to somebody so long, and I'm sure everybody here is kind of the same way. All right, I got back. Hold on. I got too excited there. We're almost done. There we go. Where to look? Retail, healthcare, finance, manufacturing, legal. Anybody that wants to put two companies together and network them together. You know, even here's something I just did the other day. Company wanted to do 3 point-to-points, and the point-to-point was extremely expensive. I'm like, why don't you just put 100 meg here and 100 meg here and connect them via SD-WAN at $100 per location, and it brought the cost down about 40%. So there's different avenues in which you can go there as well. Solution selling, again, SMB. Be nice if it came up. There we go. Barracuda and Cisco, integrated security, next generation firewalls, managed threat detection, and what we also do is we just started this is we got vulnerability assessments on a quarterly basis. So we'll do that for your customers for free. Enterprise, if they need a more robust, more secure type of solution, you know, that's really going to come from Cisco, as you could possibly see right here. Again, three different options for your customers, and if they want to take a look at Cisco as opposed to Barracuda or Versa, we can do that as well, guys. Why us? That's it. So questions, anybody?
Do you do penetration testing?
Do we do penetration? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Thank you. I actually knew that question too, or knew the answer. Anybody else, guys?
Do you have a network engineer?
What's it? No, my engineer's not here. His name's Ron Nastasio. But, you know, like Carl was saying, if we got, I can get him on the phone at any time. I do a lot of conference calls with them. I had a feeling that we might have that conversation. And just like Carl said, if we've got a customer, well, we need to fly him out to our region, no problem at all. You know, we really try, the hardest, sound circuits are kind of easy, right? Okay, you're at this price now, you're at this price, make sure it's right. If you want to have somebody with a different, like this morning, this guy called and says, hey, I need to know if it's fiber all the way through, who's the last mile? I said, such and such. He goes, yeah, but I need you for secondary. So your secondary can't be CenturyLink because that's in the primary. So I'm going to go back to the drawing board. And you know, when I do an IntelliPro, when I do a quote, it gives me 10 different quote opportunities or options. So I can go and change that. But what's nice, and the other thing is, when I bring Ron in, my sales engineer, that discussion is being made, and there's a couple different ways to go even on that. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right.
We'll have the full technical.
Much more technical. Hey, I'm never going to tell you that I'm that technical. If I was, I wouldn't be in sales. All right. Anybody else? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.